we will talk about web accessibility, what to pay attention to, and how to develop it from beginning to the end. So when I started learning coding, I'm a self-taught developer, my idea was that I just need to do stuff, and I know they will be bad, but that's not important. The important thing is to do them. But accessibility has a very interesting approach to this, because many say that no accessibility is better than bad accessibility. And when I first heard that thought, I got scared. And initially, this was my first connection to accessibility, and my first instinct was, okay, this is not for me. I don't want to ruin somebody's experience. I will not do accessibility. Although now I do agree with the statement, of course you can do damage if you do not implement something in the way that it is intended to. I would like to spin this a bit around and just say that you don't really have a choice. Accessibility is there. You already have it on your project. The users that need the accessibility features are already using your product. And now either the experience is good or is it bad. So there is no opting out of accessibility, and as we will see, on your project, you already have it. So today we'll just quickly talk about web accessibility, what are some nuances and what to pay attention to. And to connect with Ms. Mirsada's talk, we will focus a bit more on visual features, but as you will see, this is not so strictly separate. But the goal of my presentation is to teach you something applicable. That tomorrow when you get to work, you can start thinking about accessibility, check out your project, and start thinking about what are those small little things that you can start implementing immediately from tomorrow. That's my promise. And then at the end, we'll try to actually take a look at one web page. We will take a look how they implemented accessibility. Of course, I chose one that doesn't have the best accessibility, so we can actually see how to do better. And then, of course, at the end, I'll be open for all of your questions. So web accessibility is no different than any other platform or technology. The core concepts of accessibility is the same always. They might just differ a little bit on some nuances and some details. For instance, on web, we need to pay attention to all of those accessible browsers, and we need to make sure that all the accessibility features work correctly and look good, the design and the page look good in all major browsers. And maybe keyboard is also as a connection to the user, how they interact with your web page, maybe a bit more prominent here on the web. But web accessibility is not just a feature. You cannot just tomorrow open your Jira boards, open a task, accessibility, put some story points in it, and be done with this. Accessibility is something that you need to start thinking about from the beginning of the projects and continuously throughout its life cycles. So everything from design, estimations, refinements, implementation, and testing needs to be on board on the project to really ensure the greatest quality of the project. And as I mentioned, you most likely already have some accessibility features built into your projects. We're all using modern web browsers that already cover some accessibility features, and for sure, at least make the content that you're displaying through them a bit more accessible to the users in those small little ways. And on web, we most likely work with some established frameworks that already think about accessibility and how important that is. And if you go a step further, we are mostly using UI libraries, so the end component, the building blocks of the web pages. And if you're using these UI libraries, it's important to know how they implemented the accessibility features in their components. I took a look at some of the bigger ones. They all have some documentation about the accessibility, how to correctly use their components or their code to meet all of the criteria on your web pages. For instance, Chakra UI, Material UI, they are all good UI libraries, and they all have their own accessibility sections in their documentation. Of course, if you're building everything from scratch, then everything is on you to implement correctly, and then maybe it would be a good idea to cover all of those WCAG rule sets. Now, visual accessibility features, I mentioned already, they're not exactly separated. Okay, this is just for people with visual impairment, this is for people with auditory impairment. Basically, all of these features, small features, built upon each other and work in tandems to ensure that all of your users can use your web pages. And the most important thing is to understand your user base, how they are using your product, and what are their needs. And just pay attention to these small details, because if you implement them correctly and consistently, you will for sure reach something that is very, very accessible. There are, of course, a lot of features, and I cannot go through all of them today, so I just picked two bigger groups. First, I call design and diligence. We already had one talk in Zagreb that's tackled accessibility from the design perspective. The video for that is already on our webpage, and you can check it out. Also, we covered some IIS topics in Podgorica, and of course, the web. But I would say that accessibility is not something that you can just delegate to one group on your project. You can just say, okay, designers are in charge of this part of accessibility, testers are in charge of that part of accessibility, but all people involved on the project need to be aware of these guidelines and how to implement them correctly and how to use them correctly. And here I just collected a few of more prominent ones that you can immediately notice when you come on the page. For instance, how many times have you had problems just reading the text on the web page? Either it was too small, or the contrast was not the great, maybe the white background with, I don't know, yellow text or something like this. So these are all important but small things to allow the accessibility features. But of course, size and movement are also very important. We all like to design and implement really beautiful pages with a lot of animation and moving parts, but this can be beautiful but not that accessible. You need to make sure that all parts of your web page are consistent, they are communicating the information that they hold well, and that they are, clickable and navigatable by keyboard. So they shouldn't be all over the place. And of course, size, not only font sizes, but also responsive design. Like Ms. Mrisada already mentioned, a lot of users with accessibility needs will most likely even visit your web page through their mobile or other, for instance, tablet mobile devices, because they're light, they're easy to travel with, and to some degree they are also a bit more intuitive in their use. So it's important that this responsive design is well implemented for all of the devices. And the use of images and other design patterns like logos, icons, and so on needs to be, let's say, precise. How many times have you noticed that a lot of web pages communicate important information through a banner image, for instance? You visit a page and right at the top they want to tell you something important. It's just an image. For instance, you want to know if a shop is open on a specific holiday, and they have an image on top saying in big red letters, hey, we're closed tomorrow. But if that is an image, that is not accessible to some of your user base. The screen reader will not know what exactly says on that image. So this semantic part of web design needs to also be well implemented. And a nice example are we call them semaphores. It was really hard to find this accessible semaphore in real life. So you don't just communicate with color, with red and green, but you also have this little stop sign next to it. So there is no doubt. If the top one is blinking, this means stop. There is no other way to understand this, to interpret this. But on web, we like to play with colors, and we sometimes like to communicate important information through color only. One good example would be some statuses. Let's say green means good, red means bad, gray means don't know, unknown. But if you decide to just color a little circle with different color, of course this looks very nice and a lot of users will understand. But if you don't explain what that means next to it, let's say have a text, active or processed or unknown status, this can be lost information for a part of your user base. And then, of course, at the end, this alternative text for images and title text for links, it is very important to use these attributes on HTML elements, as we will see later in the practical part of my talk. So this would be, let's say, one part, the things that you see immediately, designing this diligence to incorporate these small accessibility parts all the time on your web page. And the other one is a bit broader, but it's a very important one. This is semantic DOM, so using semantic HTML elements correctly. Of course, everything on web can be div, if we're honest. It can be an image, it can be a button, it can be whatever we really want. But we have semantic HTML elements for a reason. They communicate with assistive technologies what exactly that is. So a nice example would be this H1 element. Now everybody knows, and also accessibility technology, that this is a title, this is a heading. This is much better than using a div and apply a class title to it. Okay, if you can see the page with big, bolded red letters saying this is a title, great. But a screen reader will not interpret this in the same way as it would if we would use the correct HTML element. And of course, you have all of the other semantic elements like the title in the head. So immediately when you start the screen reader, it will first look for title element and say, okay, you are on Infinum's page, for instance. And this goes then for the navigation part, the footer, the header, and so on. And here we can see something that we'll take a look a bit more later, this alternate alt attribute on the image. So this is in case something goes wrong that you cannot show the image. Let's say that the connection breaks. So this will be displayed. So users still have some indication what should be on the image. But also screen reader picks up this and tells you, hey, this is an image that is part of the web page, and this is an image of Infinum Office in Skopje in this case. And this semantic DOM is also important not only for this screen reader that I mentioned, but also for correct keyboard navigation throughout the web page. Now, the screen reader is one of the most important accessibility features. If you haven't encountered it yet or didn't work with it yet, it also has some visual indication what element is currently selected, which is in focus. And it utilizes several different aspects that I already mentioned. So this DOM semantics, the correct page design, and these alternative texts. But it also has some different purposes that are not completely intuitive from the first look at it. They also have this element focus if it is needed. So focus states are very important on web pages, but sometimes they're not implemented correctly. And some people, even though they don't need a screen reader per se, they can use it just to see this element focus a bit better. Now, where can you begin tomorrow? Like I said, the first thing to figure out is where you stand. What is your current accessibility level of your project? There are several different software solutions that you can try out. The easiest is Lighthouse, implemented directly in Chrome's DevTools. We'll take a look at it later. Just so you know what is problematic on your web page and what you can do about it. And then a concept that is very useful for any user experience investigation. Try to put yourself into your user's shoes and try to basically go through the main flows of your application using only keyboard or perhaps only using screen reader. Limit yourself, close your eyes and try to listen to the web page and what it tells you. And this way you can very, very quickly find out what can be improved on your project. Now, show and tell. I don't like criticizing others' work without them being present, but Spar is a conglomerate, a big company, so I don't feel that bad. And if any Spar executives will see this presentation, consider this a free of charge accessibility review. And I wanted to pick something that I use a lot. I don't know how it is here in Macedonia, but during the pandemic, in Slovenia, it became everyday thing that you order groceries online and they bring it to you. And Spar is one of the bigger actors in that marketplace. So I got lazy even after the pandemic, and I used this a lot. And so I'm very familiar with how this works. But now we get to a bit uncomfortable part of my presentation. And if this will feel forced or uncomfortable, that's actually the point. Incorrectly implemented accessibility features are uncomfortable and they're frustrating. And this was extremely frustrating for me when I was preparing this talk, and I was just trying to figure out how can I order a cookie. This will be our goal now. So you can see this is a nice page. Sadly, it's in Slovenian only. Maybe localization is already a minus about the accessibility features. But okay, you don't really need to understand Slovenian to understand that keyboard navigation doesn't really work. In this scenario, I will try to order this cookie using only keyboard. Okay, now bear with me. I will go a bit quicker because now I already know how to do this. But this wasn't that smooth like 2 days ago. So, just quick overview. I will use Tab and Shift while navigating throughout the page. So just clicking Tab will move focus along the page forward, and clicking Shift Tab will go backwards. And now let's see what happens when I press Tab. Where am I? I do not know. The only indication is over here. This is a preview of the link of the focused item that I currently am on. And if I press Tab again, you can see that it changes. And now I already know I'm somewhere at the top. So mobile, you can see at the top Sparmobil, right? So I click one more, and one media, contacts, zaposlitev, so employment, newsletter, okay. And then if I press Tab again, I'm on the big logo. And if I press Tab, where do I think I will land now? So currently, I'm here. This is the focused element. What is the logical conclusion? What is the next item? Se categoria. Okay, this is actually a good guess. Not correct, but good. Okay, what? Any more ideas? What is the other option?
The next button.
Izdelkiva akcija. So what is currently discounted? Okay, I'll press Tab, and you can see there that I am navigating towards enjoy meal recipes. So now I already know that this is Namigi. What happened here? So everything that I focused till now was a link. Those two are not links. They're buttons that expand into a different container that even if I press Tab, I cannot navigate to. So this is already problematic because we closed off this entire section and it is completely inaccessible to users using only a keyboard. Now, I will jump a few steps ahead and I will just press Tab until I come to the search. Here we go. You might have missed it. It was really fast. Now you can see the indicator. And let's say that I want to buy a cookie. Okay, I don't want this cookie. Let's look for other cookies. No, not Axe body spray. Okay, they don't have the cookie that I want. I want to see all of their available cookies. I guess this all categories button could be a good way to go. And if I navigate to it, it's a bit hard. I will help myself with the mouse. I have to. And I press Enter. Okay, I wasn't where I was supposed to be. Okay, I went from the beginning. And now press Enter. Good. Okay, and now again, when you open a drop-down menu, you should be able to navigate using your arrow keys. This is not the case. I'm scrolling around the page, but this is a very common issue that happens whenever you try to open some additional containers. So if I press tab, you can see that I'm navigating around this, and then if I press enter, I'm navigating again and again and again, and so on and so on. So this keyboard navigation is not the best thing that is implemented on this web page. I'm not saying that this is completely bad implementation of accessibility features. They're doing quite a lot of stuff correctly and in a good way. It's just in this my specific situation, trying to navigate only with the keyboard, this is not the best. But I want to show you a few other things that I mentioned earlier. For that, I'll just navigate back to the first page. And this is also something extremely common that you can find on basically every web page that you can go to now. I will open up. Oh, they had an update before the presentation. Okay. Let's see if they fix the accessibility features. Okay, I will just basically select one of these images and make this a little bit bigger so you can see it a little bit better. And we will just discuss these alt attributes. So you can see here that they do this part completely correctly. They included in each image alt attributes. So this is used for screen readers. Whenever we would focus on this particular item, the screen reader would tell that this is something for whatever this is. And then they also use title. And I highlighted this because I wanted to tell you more about these two, because they're often used interchangeably, but they are not the same and they don't do the same thing. So alt attributes are used for screen readers, for example. This is, like I said, an alternative for image. And title uses, with modern browsers, to display this tooltip, what this is. So it's good to have both, but one is not enough. So always good to add alt and title at the same time. And just the last thing that I wanted to mention, what do you think would happen here? What would the screen reader say here? Basically, this is also something very common, that you're using existing values within your database, for instance, for alt attributes. And they're basically copying the name of the file into title and alternative. And screen reader to tell you that this is Osebna Nega 1280 by 2010 whiteboarded 2022.jpg isn't really telling you much. So all of these alt attributes need to be more descriptive. And not to just tell you the bad things, I just want to show you the Lighthouse report as well. We'll do a very quick analysis of this page with this Lighthouse tool that is very great to figure out where your project stands. We'll just do this navigation, so just the first render, the desktop device, and we'll just do accessibility. But as you can see, this Lighthouse tool is very powerful and you can get a lot more information out of it. We'll just analyze this and it will take a couple of seconds, hopefully. Okay. A bit longer, but what I wanted to show you here is, okay, 79, score of 79. This is not that bad, this is not great, as you saw, but of course, Lighthouse also have their own limitations. For instance, they do not try out what we tried. They did not try keyboard navigation because it's a machine. They don't have exact context. But here is something that is very useful for you tomorrow, hopefully, when you try out your projects. You can see all of the different problems that you can very quickly fix. For instance, if you just go through the first one, it tells you exactly, hey, the contrast between the text here is not the greatest towards its background. So it's a bit too gray, it should be darker. Or, for instance, this yellow something color to red is also not the best, and so on and so on. And each error that you will receive has a very nice link to specific documentation that can tell you what exactly is wrong, how to fix it, and what it should be. And at the end, next to all of this actual analysis, you also have all the things that the Lighthouse couldn't test, and you need to check manually. And this can serve like a very good reminder, like a checklist of things to go through on your project. Okay, I'll switch back to the presentation, and it's QA time. Any questions, perhaps? Thank you. Okay, if no questions now, we'll be here, so we can talk a bit later. But now I would like to introduce Tihana. Tihana is our QA member, and she will present our next talk.
Thank you.